Welcome to Growth with Portia, a weekly conversation for your personal and professional growth. Here is your host, Portia Booker.
Hey listeners, welcome to Growth with Portia. I'm your host, Portia Booker, and yes, this is my real name. So, question for you. Did you bring your curious mind today? If so, I don't want to keep you waiting. Let's dive in. I'm going to go off script here for a minute because I have to share this story from earlier today. Normally, I don't start my shows off with biblical quotes. I normally don't, but I feel that this is very profound and very much so, in my opinion, perfect for the situation. I remember when my mom transitioned, and I'm a firm believer that everything happens in divine time. Everything in our life does. And I remember the biblical quote popping up on my phone. Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the thoughts that I think towards you, saith the Lord, thoughts of peace and not of evil, to give you an expected end. And when I think about that, I'm going to get a little emotional again. When I think about my mom transitioning, that was God telling me, Portia, you're in good hands. You're in my hands. She's in my care. And so what I want to really share with our listeners today is when you are open to new endeavors, to anything in your life, surrender. Surrender to the will of God, and he'll always guide you to wherever you need to go. So today I am joined by an overcomer who has a similar background as myself. After having it all and finding a way to convert the test of life into her own personal testimony, now she is on a mission to spread hope to others from her own personal story. So welcome, author, actress, model, and speaker, Miss Lorna Greyling to Growth with Portia. How are you doing today, Lorna?
Oh, Portia, I'm great. And it's such an honor for me to be here on your show. Thank you so much.
I have to say, Lorna, this is indeed a conversation that has been worth the wait. I mean, we've had to push things back because of the whole transition with my mom, but I have to admit that everything does happen when it's supposed to. And so, Lorna, I'd love to start off my conversation with gratitude. What are you grateful for today?
Oh my goodness. Well, besides for being on your show, which I'm so grateful for, I'm grateful to be alive today and to be able to share my story in the hope that it will actually touch someone's lives. Because, you know, when we go through a test and it becomes our testimony, and that's a process, you know, to have your test become a testimony. It sounds so simple, but it's not that easy. But when it does happen, when we can get to that stage, it leaves a legacy of hope. And that is what I'm so grateful for, that the tests and the struggles that I've gone through are now able to leave a legacy of hope. And I think that's what keeps me going. And yeah, I'm just so grateful for that.
Lorna, it took me a little bit of time to acquire and adapt that mindset shift. And Lorna, what did it take for you? And we'll jump into your book throughout this conversation, but what did it take for you to have that mindset shift for yourself, Lorna, where you were like, why does this keep happening to me, to what is this trying to teach me? What did it take for you to reach that side of the pendulum?
Oh, wow. Absolutely. Great question. Yes, you know, and I think you phrased it so well, is how did you get to that stage to decide that I think it's a choice between this question, like, why is this happening to me? Because that's something that we all want to kind of know, like, especially if we're got a religious lifestyle or we've got a relationship with the Lord, we tend to want to ask that question, Lord, why? Why are these bad things happening to me when I'm really trying to serve you and I'm trying to, you know, make my life count as best as I can? Why are these things constantly happening to me? But, you know, I asked this question one day in my car when I was driving to work, you know, and so many things had gone wrong at that stage. My husband was kidnapped. You know, we went through such a severe trauma. Besides that, we were held up at gunpoint in our home. We were robbed. besides that, I was also held up with guns on the road, robbed again in my car. My husband lost his job. We lost our home. We had lost our car. I was struggling in my business. There were so many things coming against me, and not small things, every time it's this really huge traumatic thing. And I got to a stage where I'm like, why are these things happening to me? It's not fair. It's like an angry, like, why? And it's a very frustrating question, because to ask that question would mean that, why I'm so good, why are these things happening to me? And I got to that stage where I asked this question in anger to God, and the answer that I got is, Lorna, I'm not going to tell you why, but I am going to ask you to trust me. And that was the only answer I got. I never got a why, and that was the last time I actually asked God why things are happening to me. And I went back to a few scriptures after that. How the word of God just comes into your life as you need it, sometimes through friends or texts or however, even a billboard. Sometimes I'm so grateful for people who put up billboards on the side of the road with scriptures on, because it just speaks to you. But yeah, I just got the scripture that says, there's only two things in life that is certain. And it's death, that when we live, we get born, and we're going to die. And those are the only two things that we know is going to happen. Everything else, life is going to be hard. There's going to be trials and tribulations. And asking questions all the time really doesn't bring any relief, because it's still going to happen. We are going to live, we are going to die. People are going to make poor choices that affect our lives, cause trauma in our lives, cause heartache in our lives. It just is what it is. And I realized with that knowledge, now I have a choice to make. I can either feel sorry for myself and keep on going, like, why am I so unlucky? Why are these things keep on? Or I can say, all right, this is happening to me. What am I going to do about it? Am I going to use this to glorify God? Am I going to use this to learn from? Am I, and it's just a constant choice every day, a decision to decide, this has now happened in my life. So what am I going to do with it? Because ultimately that ends up in a result, and that consequence determines, are you going to have joy or peace? Or are you going to just be devastated and feel sorry for yourself? And have fear and anxiety. And it sounds so simple. It's just a choice. Just choose life. I put before you death and life. Choose life. It's a hard choice to make sometimes, because sometimes I just want to feel sorry for myself. But, and then I do. Some days I just do. I just don't choose life. I just choose death. I choose to feel sorry for myself. And by the end of that day, obviously, it's just a disaster.
Lorna, I have to ask this. I love how you emphasize choice. We all have a choice to either stay in what I call the hamster wheel of shame, stay in the pit of the pity party, oh, woe is me, or we have a choice to either rise above the circumstance. And me and one of my coaches have this conversation all the time about choice. And Lorna, why do you think you decided, despite all of the adverse situations that you had been in, what do you think made you make the conscious choice to choose life over what I call the hamster wheel of death that most people choose because of the current circumstances?
Yeah. You know what? I think when I was, I think about 19 years ago, I made a choice to give my life to the Lord. I'd made this choice. I came to a cross point in my life where my life was a disaster. I was, on drugs at the time. I was severely depressed. My marriage was falling apart. I was just it was just a mess. and I actually wanted to take my own life. It was just one of those moments in life where everything was falling apart and I just literally couldn't see a way out. And in that moment, as I literally had the gun against my head, I heard a voice. I heard the voice of God, and he called my name. He called me, and he said, "Ask me." And I thought, ask who? What is this voice? What is such a surreal supernatural experience? And I was so confused and crying and hysterical. When you want to shoot yourself, it's not the most conscious place that you're in. But I literally heard God call me, and he said, "It's me. It's the God of Abram, Isaac, and Jacob." And at that very moment, I said, "Okay, Lord, show me who you are." And I was taken up into heaven, if I can explain it like that, literally taken up into a different space. I saw a well, literally like those wells where you get water from. And I went to sit on the side of this well. I was unable to look up. It was so interesting. I realized all of a sudden I'm in heaven. I realized that this is heaven, or a part of heaven, and I wasn't supposed to be there, because I was so sinful. I had all this sin in my life. And so I was there, but I wasn't able to look up. So I could only look at the floor. And I saw this cobblestone paving, if I can describe it like that. And then the next minute, I saw feet walking towards me. And I just saw these brown sandals with holes in them. And I get so teary because, being at that place where you just have done nothing to deserve grace, and then sitting in a different place and grace coming to you is such a surreal moment. So I just knew this is Jesus, and he had come to me. And again, still, I wasn't able to look up at all at that stage. I just sat on the side of the well, and he put his hand in the water of the well, and he just touched my head. And it was like waves and waves of electricity running through my entire body. And all I could hear or understand at that stage is, this is what love feels like. It's electrifying. It runs through your whole body, and it literally changes your DNA. I was just completely renewed with that single experience. And that was it. I kind of woke up, if you want to call it that, in my room. And I was like, confused in a sense, like what happened, but not confused at all by what happened. I realized that in a second, my entire being has been changed, and my whole life changed. I decided to follow God with everything I had inside of me. My language changed. I was completely healed from that day. I never, I was swearing a lot. My language changed so much. My whole lifestyle changed. The way I looked at things changed. I never touched any drugs after that. My depression, it was completely that complete state of just wanting to take your own life was gone. Everything was just changed because of the love of Jesus Christ. And so that was where my choice started, and my journey started to understand that there is a choice in life, and to understand that life does happen, but we can use it to learn from it, to glorify God with it, and that is a choice, and it's a daily choice. It's not just something that once 20 years ago I decided to follow the Lord and to change my life. It's literally every single day still a choice. Like, what am I going to do with what is in front of me? Every day is a new day. The sun rises, and then I have a choice to make with that day the best that I possibly can. But it is because of that experience that I have this ability to see and to understand a little bit more than I had before.
Yes, and we are grateful that you made that intentional choice to choose life versus death. So we're going to take another quick break right here on Group Portia. Everybody stick with us. We will be right back. everybody. Welcome back right here on Group Portia. I'm joined remotely with, of course, Lorna Greyling. And we were just continuing our conversation about gratitude and how we shifted our mindset from a place of why does this keep happening to me to what is this trying to teach me? Lorna, you said something that literally almost brought forth the waterworks show for me when you're literally in that rut of I'm sick of everything that's happening to me. I'm ready to go. I'm tired of the pain. Let the pain stop. And you're like, God, show me. I wrote a letter to God, an angry letter to God. I'm surprised that all the Bibles in my house didn't catch on fire. But literally, I was so upset, especially when my mom transitioned. I said, God, hey, what the heck? Like, why did she have to go? And you left one here. You left me. As good as I am, I've given my all. My mom, was a devout Christian, all of the things. So why does this have to happen to me? Right? Kind of like what you said. So I literally told her, I said, God, show me. God, show me. And then, of course, like what I said in our introduction, Jeremiah 29:11. God knew the plans that he had for me. And he could see that I had stopped living when my mom was severely ill. I had become a full-time caregiver of my mom, and I would have did that forever. I mean, literally, she's my mom. Like, who wouldn't?
Yeah.
But I know I had to, like you, God said, trust me.
Yeah.
Portia, just reach out your hand. Trust me. Walk with me. Yes, you're going to have blindfolds on, but that's okay. Just trust that I'm leading you through these shallow waters that you're afraid of. Don't worry about it. You just put forth the work. I'll guide you to where you need to go.
Yeah, that's so special, Portia. And I think, again, it's that daily choice to trust God, right? I mean, he's shown you that he has plans for your life, beautiful plans. And now it's that choice to say, all right, Lord, I trust you with those plans. And I love how you're saying that, it feels like we have blindfolds on, because that is what faith is. It's blindly trusting. But with that trust comes such peace, when we do decide, all right, Lord, I trust you. It's just an incredible peace that comes with it. It's hard to explain, but it's so lovely.
You're right, Lorna. I mean, in the very beginning and initial transition of my mom, I was not that person. But for me, it was the epiphany that I had when I went to go and pick up her ashes. Me and my brother went together, because that's one thing I will say. I'm forever grateful that my brother has been a very strong support system for me throughout this whole transition and that of my mom, And so when we went to go pick up the ashes, and I'm standing in the parking lot, my brother's like, oh, you have to take them home. I'm not riding with them because I'm not coming home. Really? So I got to ride home with the ashtray. Okay, fine. So, I put the ashes in my back seat, put the seatbelt on. And while I'm driving in my car, literally an epiphany just flies in the window. Portia, what if your mom's transition is for your transformation?
Oh,
I was blown away, Lorna. Hence the name of my book, Finding Grace Within Grief. Her transition, my transformation. Because that's literally the epiphany that came to me. And when you talk about trusting, I didn't know what that was. I'm like, okay, I have this epiphany, but God, what do you want me to do with it? Do I put it on the ceiling? Do I stick it on my forehead? Do I get a tattoo of it? What do I do with it? And then in my angry letter to God, I'm like, God, show me. And that's how I was able to do this series on Grew Up Portia. And then my audiobook came out, and then all the right puzzle pieces, talk about faith, right? Because I'm like, I want to do this series to help other people to prepare for grief. I'm a firm believer that grief is a process, but it's not permanent. And we go through various stages of grief in our life. I mean, Lorna, I'm sure, and I wanted to ask you, how did you navigate the grief of leaving everything that you had worked hard for to now start a new life somewhere else and convert that grief into grace for yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's a daily struggle still. especially when things go wrong. It's so easy when things go right, and especially in the beginning when we change our lives, or when we take a new route or whatever. It's almost a little bit easier because it's new. And so it's a little bit of excitement, like, yay, moving to a new country. That's exciting. But then things start to go wrong, because, moving to a different country is very, very hard. It's a complete different culture. Everything is different. Besides the loss of 20 years of hard work, my home, my business, my family, my income, everything I had is now gone. I had this calling from the Lord, and now I'm in America, and now I have to live right every day. And it's in that small daily struggles that we sometimes can get lost, and that it gets extremely difficult. Like in this, driving on the other side of the road, it's such I had to adapt to that, and it's such a challenge. So it's hard, finding food that, is that I can relate to and that I'm used to cooking, or finding it on the shelves is hard. It's a struggle. I don't know where anything is. I don't know any shops. I don't know any people. You start with absolutely nothing, with a language that is not my own, with a country that is, that is new. And then trying to find work, and so that is a struggle. Just providing food for the family, and just shelter and all that. But again, it's that daily choice. Like, all right, I'm going to do what I can with what I have, and I'm going to trust God for the rest. And it's like having blindfolds, like you say. I don't know how this is going to work out. I don't know where we're going. I don't know. I don't have the answers. It doesn't help that I ask God, why? Because he already told me, trust me. So now it's my choice. Do I trust him, or do I carry on, asking, like, what,
right.
Like that fear and faith constantly every single day, and numerous times during the day. It's like I'm confronted between this choice of choosing faith, choosing to trust God, choosing to believe that everything is going to work out for the best to those who trust the Lord. Or am I going to choose in this situation to have fear and say, oh, I don't know what if it doesn't work out? What if I don't get a job? What if I'm unable to pay my rent by the end of the month? What if, I've got this, and what if, people don't believe in me and they don't fund my show, and they don't, what if I don't ever find a job? And, so all those thoughts go through your mind, and it's hard because, the reality in front of you sometimes is fearful. But yeah, again, coming back to that simple point, saying, all right, Lorna, I put before you life and death, faith or fear. You choose which one you're going to hang on to, because that is what is going to determine your emotional state.
Mm-hmm.
What is going to happen is going to happen. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing I can do about it. If I'm going to find a job, I'm going to find a job. Having fear for the next 2 weeks, saying, that I'm not going to find a job, it's going to just affect my ability to cope. Or having faith that I might find a job within the next 2 weeks is going to affect my ability. How am I going to cope? I'm going to have a lot more joy that way. Or having fear, I'm going to sit with constant anxiety, headaches, stress. So it's actually as simple as that. It's a choice that we constantly have to make, and our choice determines our emotional state. And it's just how it is. And sometimes I get tired of choosing. Can it not just be
right? Why does
it have to be so hard?
Right? Can I just check it off the box and be done with it already?
Yes.
Like, come on now. Hey, give me a break here.
Goodness me. And it was so cool. God gave me this analogy one morning in prayer. I like to run. I like to go out and just go for a 20 minute or half an hour run in the mornings. I put my music in my ears and I just clear my head, and I like to exercise. But then some mornings I'm not in the mood, I don't feel like it. I'm tired. And so I don't go and run, so the whole day I feel miserable because I haven't exercised. If I continue not to exercise for a few days in a row, getting back into that routine it's even harder.
Brutal. It's brutal.
It's brutal.
It's
Your
brutal.
muscles are tired. My lungs it's not nice. It's like, when you go to the gym and you start training, your muscles hurt. But when you continuously go, the result of that is health. You feel good. After a while, you get so fit. It's just wonderful. You just feel so good. And it's the same thing with choosing faith, choosing to trust God and choosing faith over fear. Because if we constantly just get too tired to believe, right? Because it's an effort to believe. It just doesn't come naturally. It's so extremely hard. We will feel the consequences. We will either be spiritually healthy and fit, and we'll be able to conquer a lot, handle a lot, do a lot, or we'll be spiritually weak.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have no fitness, no endurance, and we will struggle. And it's just, God gave me that analogy, and it made so much sense for me. So now I remember that, and I try and get up anyway, even though I feel tired, I'm not in the mood. And sometimes I just go slower, and that also helps. Sometimes I don't run, I just walk, put my music in and just go for a brisk walk. And so sometimes we can slow down a little bit. Sometimes we just don't have the faith that we need, and we can slow down. We can take it slower. But just don't stop, don't choose fear.
I think that's back. I think that's part of the balance, though, Lorna, in life, when we are accustomed to going at a certain pace in the world that we live in with a plethora of social media platforms. It's like, I need you on me today. I need you to focus on me today. Me. So you're already overly stimulated by the worldly new ways of living. So you're disconnected from yourself, disconnected from your health, your needs, and all of those things. So of course you're going to be sped up on the anxious train. And we have to learn to say, you know what? I'm going to take a little pause, stop all the things that are moving, all the moving pieces, and I'm going to focus on me for a minute. I'm going to give myself a slower pace to rebuild, reconstruct. I mean, you can't have faith and fear on the same pedestal, right? So, I think that is a good thing when we're able to recognize the awareness piece. Let's put that in there. Yeah. Being aware that spiritually there's some rockiness, or physically, emotionally there's some rockiness, and being able to take that awareness and really ask yourself those tough questions. What do I need to do to really take care of myself in this moment? Absolutely. So we're going to take another quick break right here on Groove Portia. Everybody stick with us. We will be right back. Everybody, welcome back right here on Groove Portia. I'm Joe Mutley with Lorna Greyling. We're just continuing our conversation, of course, around hope, faith, and realizing that faith and fear cannot be on the same pedestal. So, Lorna, if one of our listeners was interested in connecting with you and learning more about you, is there a website or a social media handle you can share with us today?
Yes, absolutely. My website is just my name and surname, or name and last name. I've got to say it the American way, right? Name and last name. It's Lorna, Lorna, Greyling, Grey, like the color gray, Ling.com. So LornaGreyling.com. And everything is on there, all my social media links and videos and the book. If they want to buy my book, the link is on there on the author page. And if they want to invite me as a speaker, there's just so much information. So I think it's best to just go to the website.
And you can connect with Lorna at your leisure. And yes, you're right. All the things are on your website because I had an opportunity to check it out multiple times. Like, man, she's got all the bells and whistles here, but that's for a whole nother day. So let's dive into your book. Obviously, our listeners can't see you like I do, where I can see the front cover of your book. So your book is titled Kidnapped. I want to really talk about right now, Lorna. Can you walk us through your writing process to share such a painful trial that you turned into a testimony? What was that like, the writing process of happening to go back in time into those emotions, into the all of the things? Walk us through that.
Yes, I think, there's two things that happens when we write a book. The one, like you say, it's a very emotional process, definitely very, very emotional, lots of tears, reliving the story over and over and over again, because that's what it is when you write a book. You go through it numerous times. It really does take such a long time to completely finish a book. But then the healing that comes through it is so profound, because going through the same story so many times, I think, is part of why especially me, I'm so healed by it. I can tell the story, and it truly, there are bits and pieces that I'll remember, and I'm like, I remember it was so hard, but I don't feel traumatized through it anymore. And I think that is such a profound victory to have. So I will encourage anybody that has gone through a difficult time in their life, to put it on paper, even if you never publish it, but write it down and go through it as many times as you are able to, and make it a testimony, leave a legacy with it, because that gives meaning to trials, and it gives meaning to trauma, and it's such a healing process. But yeah, coming back to your question, how I wrote the book, basically, my husband and I, because it's written in both of our stories, because we were apart at the time. I was working and managing the kids, and he was on a work expedition in Nigeria filming. He's a sound engineer, audio engineer for television. So they were filming a big sport event in Africa. And when their crew bus was ambushed, and 55 rebels with AK-47 guns, rocket launchers, heavily armed, grabbed him from the crew bus and forced them. There were 10 other hostages, into cars, and just started speeding off with them, shooting some of their crew members, shooting women, children, killing people. It was just a war zone, absolute war zone. And at the time I was back in South Africa, in Johannesburg. It's not the same country. So it's the same continent, but it's different countries, basically. And so we were apart, and so our story is combined. It's my story, how I got the news, how the rebels would phone me on my phone, how I had to listen to my husband screaming for his life, literally begging me and shouting, help me, they're going to kill me. I would hear the beatings on his body over the phone line. I would hear him scream like he's going to die any second. I would hear the rebels shoot, and the phone would die, and there would just be dead silence. And I wouldn't know, is he dead? Is he alive? And, and obviously throughout the whole kidnapping and hostage situation, it would be the two stories of what I went through and what he went through from his side, and we combined that. So we basically told the story on voice notes. He told his side, I told my side, and a friend of mine helped us to transcribe it at the time. And then throughout a process, a godly process, I must say, God placed numerous people on my path to help me rewrite the book. So it was rewritten numerous times. I think 5 or 6 people, worked on it, and as well as myself, because every time I go through it again, I check facts. I put in emotions. I had to put in the emotions for my husband, various places, because men tell a story very factual. And it was so profound. I remember I was working on the book for 2 weeks, literally day and night, And I literally felt the Holy Spirit come upon me and give me the emotions that my husband was feeling at the time. And I was typing on the computer, filling in the blanks, if we can say it like that. And I remember when I read it back to him and I asked him, is how, do you think this is correct? Is this how you felt? He would just cry. He would just be completely overwhelmed. Like, how do you know? How did you put it into words so well? Because men don't always know how they feel. They're just not as in tune with their emotions. And hearing that for him was also so healing. But that wasn't my strength. That was by the power and the glory of God. But yeah, so it was a long process. It happened in 2010. And the Afrikaans book, which is my native language, was launched, I think, in 2014, if I remember correctly. But Kidnapped True Story was only launched on Amazon last year in October. So it's literally brand new, the brand new English version with the new cover and everything. And I'm very grateful to say that I received a #1 new release award from Amazon. So we were so excited. So I trust that it's going to change many, many, many lives.
And, Lorna, #1, congrats on being able to take such a painful, emotionally trying event in your life and being able to mold it into a testimony for somebody else. You never know who could hear that story and may not be going through the same exact parallel of life that you went through, but maybe they've been kidnapped in a sense of their emotions. Maybe they've been kidnapped in a sense of their physical reclamation. There's various analogies that can go along with a simple word. And so kudos to you, Lorna. And the Holy Spirit works in a unique way. Yeah. When you ask for help, if you trust, again, this goes back to faith.
Yeah.
If you trust that the answer is going to come to you, it will.
Yeah.
Because that's how I felt writing this book. I really didn't know what direction this book was going to go, this audio book. Because originally it was just only going to be audio, but there is going to be a print version coming out in December of this year. And spoiler for people, but, I didn't know all the parts and pieces. And then I got a message saying to you from God telling me, Portia, the audio book's going to be different than the print. Here's the extra pieces that need to go on the print that cannot be in the audio. I said, okay, we're just going to roll with it. All right. But again, it's that same thing. I didn't know all the emotions that, and would you say too, Lorna, when you were writing that book, you brought up about being healed. Would you say every time you're able to share your story and share your testimony to other people, do you find that you reach a new level of, I would say, healedness, and that you're able to encourage other people onto their own healing endeavors?
Yes, I think it's one of the most profound parts of having a story out there and having, the ability to have this book and share it. It's so healing to know that my story and my trauma is able to touch lives, and that I can use the truths that I learned during that time and share that. And, it encourages me as well. When I share my story, I remember, oh my gosh, all right, so this is what I'm going to do in my life today, right? I'm also going to trust, because this is literally where God showed me that choice between faith and fear. Because when the rebels would shoot, the phone would die. The last thing I heard was my husband's voice begging for his life, and now there's dead silence. It sounded like they killed him. I had this choice to believe, am I going to trust God, or am I going to have fear and look at the circumstances in front of me? And in everything throughout the whole traumatizing kidnapping, constantly, every second, every hour, I had to make that choice. What am I going to do? Am I going to trust God, or am I going to succumb to fear? And so that's where I learned this lesson. And it was such a testament of how great and with so much ease I was able to get through this kidnapping, and with really very little percussions or PTSD or trauma or whatever the case is, because of the fact that I was able to choose faith most of the, basically almost I went back to that choice the whole time. I just hang on to that faith. And so when I tell the story now, I think, oh my gosh, all right, so that's what I can do today in my own life. I have this battle. And remember, Lorna, choose faith. Don't succumb to the fear. Choose faith. And it just encourages me as well. I learned from my own story, and that is profound. So even if it's just for me and it touches nobody else, then maybe it's also okay. Maybe it's what keeps me going. So it's good.
I can agree with you there, Lorna, as I am just entering the author space. I find that every time I listen back to my audiobook, different snippets and that, I'm like, I needed this. I needed this at one point. I'm happy to know that I took the initiative instead of becoming a prisoner of all my emotions, all the things, becoming a product of grief. I was able to produce a product from my grief journey. So it's that mindset shift that we tend to have to unlearn a lot of ideologies, expectations, because that's what I brought up in my audiobook. I said, what if grief works the exact same way? What if grief is letting go of all the ideologies, all these expectations, societal norms to become our full, authentic self?
Wow.
Because
beautiful.
Grief, you're letting go of not just obviously that physical interaction or connection with the person, but you're also releasing the identity that you had. You're also releasing several probably traumas that have resurfaced. And there's a whole plethora of things that you're letting go, but it's through that letting go is where you're making room to either become a prisoner or you're making room to become victorious from a situation that was once keeping you a victim. Absolutely. So we're going to take another quick break right here on Group Portia. Everybody stick with us. We will be right back. Everybody, welcome back right here on Group Portia. Well, Lorna, I thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with us your true trial to testimony story. I mean, how profound. What you shared with us about your book. Some people would probably think it's an episode on like NCIS or some other sitcom, but it actually happened to you. And the fact that you're able to share what truly happened to help other people find hope and inspiration within their own lives and convert their mess into a message is just amazing. So I thank you for coming on and sharing that with us today.
Thank you, Portia. It's such an honor.
Lorna, I got to ask this. I mean, you wear so many different roles in life. I mean, obviously you're an author, you're a speaker, you have your own show, you're also a mom of 3 beautiful girls. I mean, Lorna, how do you find that balance, right, between all of the things you're passionate about of helping other people, inspiring hope, and also maintaining your own mental well-being?
Oh, great question, right? How do you juggle all the balls? Yeah, I think that's that balance. I think you mentioned it right there in the question already, is literally to find the balance. I think, and this year specifically 2022, I kind of simplified my life a lot as well to be able to find that balance, and also to just decide what is most important for me. So, I got to that stage in my life as well. In the beginning of my life, I was very career driven, right? This is what I want to do. This is, I've got all these plans, blah, blah, blah. And I was doing relatively well until we literally COVID hit. And I lost everything, literally everything I ever worked for. I had a huge business in South Africa. I had owned the biggest wellness center in Melville, which is an area in Johannesburg. And I was a television presenter. I was a news anchor. This incredible life there, beautiful home, beautiful cars and everything. And COVID hit. And we were literally just locked down. My husband works internationally, so he couldn't fly out internationally because of COVID. For over 18 months, he just didn't work and we had no income. And to survive, I had to sell my business and I had to literally sell everything we had. We couldn't pay our home, couldn't pay our cars. I had to move in with my parents. It's like, oh my gosh, my whole life just blew up in flames. And so yeah, lots of drama and stress. So I realized very quickly what is actually important in life, and that is your family and love, people around you. And obviously my relationship with the Lord, with Jesus Christ, because those are the things that speak value beyond physical stuff. It was apparent for me how fast you can lose all the physical stuff that you worked for your entire life. Just like that, like 20 years, half of my life, blood, sweat, and tears just literally went up in smoke right in front of my eyes, and there was nothing I could do about it. But what stayed was my family, my love, my children, and obviously mainly, like I say, my relationship with Jesus Christ, which gives me the strength to get through it, because to get through something like that is so very hard. And yeah, I just simplified. I'm like, well, this is what is important for me, is relationships, my husband, my children, my relationship with Jesus. And so that is what I'm going to invest in the most. And everything else, I'm going to balance it and do the best I can. And I think that is where, for me personally, I find my mental health, is because I've simplified my life. I've decided for myself what is most important and what I want to invest in the most, and everything else, I put it in around that. If I can schedule it in around the important things. And
right.
Yeah, so that works for me.
Yeah, Lorna, I love what you mentioned about the foundation of your faith, your family, and love. Because I know for me, especially during this year, has just been such a transitional year for me. When I literally look back at it, it's like, where did the time go? We're almost to the next year, 2023. And,
Yeah.
When I think back on everything that has transpired, from obviously the biggest loss of my mom transitioning, it makes me realize that life is too short to stay in a space where I'm unhappy. It's too short to stay small when you can play bigger. It's too short to continue to sacrifice your happiness for other people's comfort.
Yeah.
And I had to learn through my mom transitioning. She literally told me this, Lauren, and I might get emotional, and I've shared this plenty of times, that I had the opportunity to tell my mom, thank you for giving me life. Thank you for being my cheerleader when I couldn't cheer for myself. Thank you for encouraging me to go for my dreams when the rest of the world laughed at me. And I also told her I would not want to call anybody else mommy but you. And my mom told me shortly before she transitioned, a couple hours before, she said, Portia, she said, that means mommy's job is done. Wow. She said, mommy's job is done. And little did I know, her saying that, I said, you know what? It's only the beginning. This is the beginning. And that's why I said, to me, grief is that it's almost equivalent to, in my mind, when you're playing a sport and you've trained for months and months and months, to run this 50K marathon. And right when you're about to reach the finish line, you crack your ankle after you trained for all this time to get there. And then all of a sudden it flops. So you're stuck between two parallels. You have a choice to either stay a victim or find a way to become victorious out of this situation.
Yeah.
And so it was the same with me for my mom. I either could have stayed a victim of grief or found a way to become victorious up from all the emotions, all the prisons, all the things. And I can say, Lorna, I've learned so much about myself through this grief journey, because grief isn't new for any of us. But I think in our society, we tend to place a stronger emphasis on grief when it's the loss of a physical person versus, there's people who are empty nesters that go through grief. There's people who grieve what the childhood they never had, or in your case, grieving all the things that you worked hard for the last 20 years, just going completely up. And there's no way you can get it back just with a snap or a pull of a rabbit hat.
Absolutely. And you nailed it, Portia, just with, it's the choice. Like, are you going to become a victim of grief, or are you going to let this grief make you victorious? Because I think previously you said it so beautifully that grief can transform us actually into a more powerful person if we allow it to, if we choose. Again, it's not choice. I hated choices. Why do we have to choose? Why can't it just not be easy? But sadly, we are stuck with this life, and we constantly have to choose. What are we going to do with our circumstances? And are we going to allow the grief to, like you say, just destroy us, or are we going to choose differently? And it's like you said that analogy with the race again. It's so traumatizing when, like, you've trained for a race or your whole life, you put in the work, and then you break your ankle like right before the finish line. Right? But now again, we have a choice. Are we going to slow down and keep going even though it's painful? Because obviously, to keep going or walking or crawling even with a broken ankle, it's gonna be painful. It really is painful to continue. It's painful to make that choice, to allow grief to make you victorious. It's not an easy choice. It's not nice for our flesh. Honestly, it is just painful. But again, that's what's going to take us over the finish line, is to continue even though it's painful, and even though we don't feel like it. It's just, we've got to get beyond our feelings and understand that our choices determines our outcome. Always. It's just the law of the world. It's just never differently. Whether you a Christian, whether you're an atheist, whether you're old or young or poor or rich, it doesn't matter who we are. It's always like that. Whatever we choose is going to have a consequence either way. Doesn't
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
And to understand that, and then when we understand that, I think it's a little bit easier to make the painful choices. I don't know. Some days it's definitely harder than others, but at least we keep trying, even if we go slower. Just keep going.
That part right there, to no matter what, keep going. Because even, Lorna, some days I look at the life that I currently have, where I literally prayed for this life that I had, to be able to help new and veteran podcasters to really excel in their creative outlet of being a podcaster, to now I'm producing shows for other people around the world. I mean, I literally prayed for this life. And now that I'm here, some days I'm like, man, I want to just throw it all away. I'm tired. I don't want to keep doing this. Like you said, when you get out of the swing of being on an exercise routine, sometimes when I go on like vacation, I'm like, oh, I'm not producing this show. Oh my God, who's handling this? But then I have to bring myself back. Like, wait a minute, let's go on a slower pace. Everything's okay. Everything's all right. Everything is working out the way that it should. And again, putting that faith as the front pedestal and removing the veil of fear, because fear will hold you captive in ways that we probably will never, ever imagine. And I think it shortens so many people's lives. I mean, I know for me, my mom really gave me a lot of encouragement no matter what. I mean, she was my cheerleader through it all. She's like, Portia, go for what you want. She literally told me that. She said, Portia, go for what you want. When I pursued my TV job 1,000 miles away, my mom was the first person to encourage me, go for it. Go for it, Portia. When everybody else was like, oh, I don't know if you want to do that, my mom was the main person who was like, Portia, go for it. If this is what you really want, go for it. And I'll forever be grateful for my mom, for her giving me those armor of encouragement and literally pushing me to be the best person that I can be and not let anything stop me from achieving my goals and dreams.
Oh, amen.
Oh, Lorna, oh my goodness. Like I said, I knew this conversation was definitely worth the wait. And I thank you again so much for coming on and just sharing so much of your story and your journey of hope for other people to no longer be a prisoner of their life circumstances, but find a way to become free from the societal narratives.
Absolutely.
Well, everybody, that was Miss Lorna Greyling that you heard from. And that concludes another episode of Grew with Portia, everybody. Thanks for listening and have a great evening, everybody.